Hello, everybody. My name is Jake Miller. I'm the Adult Programming and Outreach Librarian here at the Kingston Frontenac Public Library. Today is a special day because with us we have Tiana Edwards. Tiana is host of the Black Experience podcast, Kingston native, community partner, and creator of the Keep Up with Kingston blog. She's also recently a graduate of the master's program at the School of Cultural Studies at Queen's and is an equity coordinator for the Yellow House at Queen's. Welcome, Tiana.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And it's great to have you. So after I didn't know where to start because I mean there's so much going on, and when I read your CV, so to speak, there's so much going on in life. I didn't know where to start. So I guess I'm gonna kind of start from the beginning and ask you, like, after kind of coming in of age in Kingston, you moved away for about 10 years. But what drew you back? Was it kind of your social networks, or did you want to make Kingston kind of the focus of your studies? I just want to see where the back and forth came from.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, I was born and raised in Kingston, and then I left to study journalism and start my career as a journalist in Toronto. I lived in Berlin for a bit, and then basically after my husband and I got married, we were starting to have those questions of like, well, now what are we gonna do? Like, are we gonna buy a house? Are we gonna sell? Will we have kids? And as we were having those conversations, I said like, what about Kingston? My husband's not from Kingston, and he was like, oh, finally. And I was like, wait, what? He was like, I have been waiting for you to say you want to get out of Toronto forever. So he was basically ready to move to Kingston pretty quickly. So it was around this idea of just slowing down. Like I always say that Kingston every day feels like Sunday here. And so we were able to kind of just like leave the GTA. We were living downtown at the time, and we were kind of just over it, like over our cramped space, have more space. So we moved back to Kingston in 2015, a year after we got married. And it was, yeah, we bought a house a year later, 2016. And so the concept was really just to do what people do, right? Like kind of, we spent our time in our 20s in the city. We were ready to just slow down a bit, buy property, which at the time and still is feels impossible in the GTA. And at the time was accessible in Kingston. Now it also feels not accessible in Kingston, but we were lucky. And so that's what it was. And then now we have two daughters. So it took us a few years, but once we settled down and bought a house, a few years later we had our first daughter, who's now I'm going to be 5 in April. So yeah, the point was really just to slow down, and my mom is still here. So yeah, be close to family and some childhood friends.
And how, when you came back, like how has the perception of yourself within the community changed from the time you departed to your return?
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny because when we were moving back, I my husband jokes that I was like, I just want to be anonymous. Like the thing I don't like about Kingston is everywhere you go, you bump into somebody. It's so annoying. Like you can't just blend in, especially as a racialized person. Like it's always like it's me or my mom. I used to joke when you like would see a woman of color or a black woman in the grocery store. And I didn't want to stand out. And I started the blog. And my husband was like, "Why did you start the blog if you didn't want to stand out?" Because like everywhere we go now, it's like this thing where it's like, "Oh, keep up with Kingston." And so, my perception of myself has changed actually. Because as much as growing up, I was always bumping into people I knew. Like it actually happens more now, but it's actually more in like a curated way. Like I really have been so transparent in how I communicate with like the public through the blog and stuff that I actually find myself like loving the feeling of running into people, because it's like it's people who either are interested in the things that I'm interested in, or like love the blog, or like the podcast, or just like folks. It's really like this nice warm fuzzy feeling I get from mostly from bumping into people, new relationships that I've curated since I've been back. Like, so yeah, my perception is different. And also, like, when I think of some of the experiences that I've shared in the podcast or that I shared on my blog, Keep Up with Kingston, of like racism in Kingston, that kind of thing, I've set some like pretty hard boundaries on the folks I surround myself with. So I am not like experiencing some of those like microaggressions that I would have experienced, and like some of the base reasons why I moved away in the first place as much now, because I have a pretty like tailored community around me, which I love.
Hmm. In what ways has have the Black communities changed during the last 20 years? Because we've kind of Kingston's changed a lot in that time, but the joke is Kingston doesn't change. So, it's kind of those, which is it? Do you see any particularly, positive trends or challenges within these communities?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because in the episode with Judy Brown, I find out from Judy, who is a Kingstonian. I came here for university. She's in her 80s, and she identified that my parents came here because of an EDI initiative like 40 years ago. That's what brought my parents here. And in the interview, she talks about how a lot of those folks actually like left Kingston and didn't stay. My parents stayed, but so I now full circle, I am now doing the work that my parents, like the reason why my parents came here. It's like this weird thing. My parents came here for an EDI initiative. Now they have a daughter who works in EDI, and so to me that kind of proves that like the cycle continues. Like we Kingston still has a ways to go, because Black folks do come and stay some, but I do still hear from Black folks who have like tried to make it here and are just like still not super comfortable because it is still quite homogenous, and it still does have like hints of some of the things that made it problematic many years ago. So yeah, I would say like for me it feels different in the time of the 20 years back of like leaving and coming back. Again, because of that selective community, there's community groups like the Blacklight Collective. So like there's like a WhatsApp chat for Black folks in Kingston to connect that has like many, 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 many people on it, and that makes it easier. I can see it makes it easier, especially because I do have folks reaching out to me, Black folks reaching out to me when they move here to be like, what should I do? And I usually just hook them up with a Blacklight Collective. And it's really life changing, and it's a lifesaver for a lot of Black folks. So I guess technology, I would say, has changed the way that Black folks show up in Kingston, because we do have like these like social networks through technology like WhatsApp to find connection. And then even through the blog and the Black owned business list, like people can find their things through that, find their businesses, support each other. So it is changing, but I think some of like the baseline systemic issues with like, just not having a ton of representation, I still think that those are there. And I say that because I also actually am a teacher at St. Lawrence College. So I teach a lot of students there who are international students. And like literally last night, I had students say to me, like we went to the place that you suggested, and like I felt like people were kind of racist there. Like we were like the only people of color, and like it actually wasn't super comfortable for me. And then that's when I have to like remember that because I'm a local and I'm familiar with folks, it feels different for me when I show up for places than for folks who are like new to Kingston. They're racialized and they're also international, have an accent, and what that might be like, what the interactions might be like. So that was a really long answer. I would say, I mean, I don't want to say it has completely changed. I want to say that there's still room for improvement in terms of like how people view folks of color or Black folks in Kingston. But I do see that there are like things are shifting, and the culture is shifting in terms of inclusion and representation. Slowly, it's slowly
Mhm.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, the wheels of time grind slowly. I heard that somewhere before. So hopefully it's in the right direction if it's slow, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so there's been increased attention on Black experiences in our region because of the efforts of community leaders. So is there a community leader that has been of a particularly special inspiration to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's been actually, I have so many. When I first, obviously, you sent me these questions. So when I was reflecting on this question, like a few people came to mind. The creators of the Blackwood Collective, Lavi Williams and Mofi Badmos, who Lavi still works at Queens in our HREO office. And like, obviously, that's been a huge network and like life changing, like I said, for many. So I think of them. But then I also think of like Vanessa Mensa, who's an EDI manager for the city, and her and Colin, who was previously the director for arts and culture, like the way that they came behind um, the community last year for Emancipation Day and like showed up for the Black Bloc Party as community leaders, like who work inside the city, that was incredible. So I really wanted to shout out to Vanessa and Colin because they're just like, I just thought that was like such amazing leadership, and I thought that that really like demonstrated the shift. We had people coming from Toronto and Ottawa for that block party, and so that kind of just showed like Kingston's leadership. That showed Kingston's leadership in the ways of like what the future could look like in Kingston. So shout out to them. And then the last person I thought of, who is always on top of my mind, is Emily Shanger. Emily Shanger, who is the director at the Agnes. She and her team like have done an incredible job at decolonizing what it looks like for, you know, art and academics, what that looks like in Queens and also in the Kingston community. They brought in lots of artists of color. They specifically brought in an artist named Zena, who's came from the States, that's actually African, and like, I don't know, it was just really moving to see myself in so much of the work that they're doing. So yeah, I said many people. I'll repeat: Lavi and Mofi of the Blackwood Collective, Vanessa and Colin from the city, and then Emily from the Agnes have all just been community leaders that I've seen like really um, shifting like the way that we all view their work and really decolonizing some of the systems in Kingston to make them feel more inclusive and better for Black communities, and to also like include the voices of Black folks. So shout out to them.
Our region's educational institutions welcome newcomers from countless nations. So have these newcomers reached out to Kingston's Black communities or community organizations such as the Black Luck Collective or the African Caribbean Students Association to socialize and share their experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I can say like as somebody who helps with the Blackout Collective, like WhatsApp groups, I can see folks coming in and requesting to participate. We do have a lot of new folks, newcomers coming in saying like, I just moved here, you know, where can I find like the special ingredient or the thing for like the specific hair product. So I am seeing that happen. I think again, it's like really big shout out to Vanessa Mensa from the city for like creating more of those like pipelines for newcomers to connect with Black communities here. I am seeing it's like having that representation inside the city really, I think, has been a game changer in terms of it being feeling a bit more seamless. But I know that like there are quite a few folks who are coming into Kingston every year, and like those numbers could be growing even more. So I do see it, but I do think that it could probably be even more seamless to connect with Black communities if we keep finding those pipelines. And I think that Vanessa is doing that work to make it easier for sure.
I was curious when I found your podcast months ago, probably last summer. What motivated you to jump from the blog format to the podcast world? Because it's so different, and yet you know there's so much carryover too. But I just wondered what kind of motivated that desire.
Yeah. So a few things. I would say that like when I started doing my master's at Queen's part time many years ago, it took me about 5 years part time, and I had two kids at the same time. When I started doing that, I was like, I wanted to look at Blackness in Kingston, but I hadn't, and I was kind of looking at the city, and I was trying to figure out like how is this going to, how am I going to finish this degree with something that feels like meaningful? And I wanted it to be a project that wasn't a thesis because I did a thesis for my undergrad. I wanted it to be like something like more of like a creative project. And so after I wrote this blog post during the 2020 like height of the Black Lives Matter movement, I wrote about my experience in Kingston, which actually is how I gained a lot of followers with the Keep Up with Kingston blog. But what I realized when I did that, like, is I had so many Black folks like reaching out to me and sharing their stories and sharing like what it meant to them, also sharing their experiences and feeling so like affirmed and validated. And I was thinking like, this is so not about me. Like there are so many other incredible stories. And as I was still kind of like working through my classwork for the program, I was entering the part where I had to actually decide like what the project is. And that's when I just was like, you know, we were in the middle of being at home all the time. It was 2020 when I was making these decisions. And I was listening to so many podcasts already. Like I was just, you know, we're at home. It's like I can only watch so much Netflix. I really was preferring listening to podcasts and like stress cleaning my house. And so I just realized that I was like, I can do that. Like if my story was a story that resonated with so many people, I actually would prefer to interview other people to hear their stories, so that those people can affirm more people, because I am one type of person And so that's why I was like, this will help with a few things. It helps with representation because it's no longer just like, oh, Tiana's like story of being Black in Kingston. It's also, you know, Martha's story of being Black in Kingston, Judy Brown's story of being Black in Kingston, Lugaya's story of being Black in Kingston. And so everybody can kind of pull from that, like what that's meant to them. So that meant something to me. It also meant like a lot of folks in Kingston don't see stories of Blackness, like non-Black folks don't see stories of Blackness. So what I was realizing when I reflected back on some of my previous experiences is, like folks who aren't around Black people are pulling from like pop culture and things that are like don't resonate with people from Kingston because they don't really know what our experiences are, right? And so I was like having a podcast where folks can actually just listen to the stories and experiences of Black folks without then feeling the need to like ask more questions or like they can just sit and listen to these stories and just have an understanding of an actual local experience. So it was representation both for the Black community and for folks who are not Black but are wanting to like understand more, specifically thinking of like the height of the BLM movement. And then also to fight the idea of transience because there are folks who have lived in Kingston for a while or did live in Kingston who share their experience, and also people who like had some serious racism that happened to them, and then also folks who were like, everything was pretty great. So it's also this idea of looking at the Black experience and not looking at it in like a monolithic perspective. Everybody is different, and like can be Black folks who are like, super chill, or maybe have a lower tolerance, or maybe have a higher tolerance for some of like the microaggressions or things that can happen to them. But it's like for people to understand that there are multiple stories and Black folks are diverse. The Black diaspora is very large. And so that was really like why that was a long answer again, but that was why I turned it into a podcast was, to like really be able to share the story in a way that people could sit and absorb in an accessible manner because I felt like videos felt like too much of a commitment, representation, and to fight the idea of transience and to give more insight into how Black folks are not a monolith but are quite diverse inside the culture. So those are all the reasons why I started the podcast and why I'm going to try to continue it and outside of my master's degree and record another series of interviews hopefully this summer. If my daughters will give me the space, if I can squeeze in the time inside of parenting and stuff and working. But I found that what's been most validating is having Black folks reach out to me and be like, wow, I listened to that episode and that's exactly how I felt. That felt really amazing. And has made it really meaningful, which is why I think I want to keep doing it.
And what's the future? Well, I guess you just alluded to it. At the conclusion of your studies, there's kind of a bit of a pause, but I'm thinking, so you see it kind of going forward in 2024 in some capacity at least, because I love the most recent one with Writers Fest and the ones with Judy, and I'm like, oh, what's next? What's next? And I'm like, I'll ask her today. But yeah, so I just wondered if there was a soft timeline.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, the episode from Writers Fest, like I really have to give a shout out to Writers Fest. Like they were really sweet to ask me back, the team, and actually to record my conversation with Britta B and Antonia J. Okabitek. So yeah, when I think of like the future, it is doing more, and I feel like I had a blind spot where I didn't interview anybody who was like an immigrant or refugee to Kingston who happened to be Black. Like I think that was a missing piece, and I would like to revisit that by interviewing somebody who comes with that perspective. And I also would like love to interview, like the folks behind Black Lives Collective. Like, there's just so many people I still wanted to interview, but again, I was trying to wrap up my master's degree, so I had to like end it where I ended it, and so that's why I want to continue. And maybe if I keep doing it turns into like a book of transcriptions from all the interviews on Kingston the Black Experience, and maybe it will be a book that you can carry right there in your library.
That's something we're always happy to consider here. A local, local representation of our creators and our leaders. It's fantastic. So is there an event or episode of Black history, whether it's Black Canadian history or Black history in general, that you'd encourage listeners or students to research for themselves? And why is that? I'm curious, as Black history approaches, like you said, it's so diverse. It's a topic of such weight, it's hard to, quantify. So I just wondered if there was something that jumped out at you since your studies. You're like, wow, people really got to look into this more.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the most famous writer in terms of like their experience in Kingston of Blackness is Desmond Cole, The Skin Ran. So I'm sure like a lot of folks are familiar with Desmond Cole, and his book The Skin Ran. I'm sure it's actually in your library. It's like um, it's pretty moving and really incredible work. And Desmond Cole was at Queens for a little bit, so Desmond Cole is a person that I will say, and the poetry of Britta B, who was like interviewed on the podcast. Britta B is incredible and has a pretty specific like Kingston rooted experience. And so I would recommend looking into her poetry. She actually has a book out right now. So if you want to check out her book, then I would definitely recommend. Um, Checking that out as my brain completely like fogs and I'm like, why can I remember the name of her book? I'll specifically say to check out Britta B's specific poem Black Balance. But as I talk to you right now, I'm just gonna get the name of her book. Why is that sputter? There it is. So yeah, why is that sputter? I was like, why is my brain not working? I recommend checking that out and also checking it out on Audible because she recorded her poetry and she's like a spoken word artist. So she just like speaks in a very lyrical, beautiful way. So Desmond Cole and Britta B are like two authors who are Black and have experiences in Kingston that they've written about, and that I would recommend. And those are like the two people that I would, yeah, that I think of when I think of like Black history. Obviously, you can go much deeper and you can look at like the archives in Kingston. It's actually really interesting to look at some of the archives of like families that have lived in Kingston. If you have time to like go to the archives and check out some Black history, it's pretty fascinating because actually what happened is some Black folks came here and then they assimilated and like changed their identities to be of like Spanish descent to like survive. And so some of those stories got lost. So maybe I'll speak to like an archivist on one of the podcasts so we can do a deeper dive into Black histories in Kingston. But if you have time to look at our archives, then I would check that out. You can even find some of like the Black archives online. Um, so I would recommend that. And as we talk, I'm going to get you the website. I should have done this before our conversation. So if you go to Digital Kingston, there's Black history in Kingston on that website, and that's where you can learn about like George Mink, Robert Sutherland, who famously saved Queens many years ago. You can learn about James Elder and the Elder family. So those are all folks who have like history back down to like the 1800s or the times of post enslavement in Kingston. So yeah, you can check out Digital Kingston Black Histories in Kingston for more deeper dive into our history. But Desmond Cole and Britta B were the first names that I thought of when I read that question.
No, we appreciate the plug as well for Digital Kingston and recommending those authors. We spoke with Britta about 2 years ago, and it was just a fantastic experience. So, and as a library, we're always looking for recommendations from our community members. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Tian Edwards, host of the Black Experience podcast. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Jake.
It's been a wonderful experience, and hopefully, things move forward. 2024. Hopefully, it's all upwards and momentum. And yeah, so thanks for being with us. Take care.
Thanks so much. Take care.